What's going on? Welcome back to the Joe Gators Show on Kane Central. Checking us out here on the Miami Hurricanes on SI, Miami Hurricanes on SI YouTube channel, or watching us right here on my own social media machines at Joe Gators 6 on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Or you're listening to us on the Joe Gators Show on Kane Central on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. And we are back for a week 2. Ready to get into week number 2, a little bit week 1 review and week 2 against Florida A&M with our friend Justice Sandle. You can follow him at Justice_News5, or make sure you're reading all of his great work at Miami Hurricanes on SI. 41-17 this weekend over the Florida Gators. Justice, have the Miami Hurricanes come down from a big rivalry game win, and are y'all ready for week number 2?
Absolutely. The mindset is 0-0 going into this week. No matter who the opponent is, it is Florida A&M, but this mindset is still 0-0. It's football at the end of the day, so you got to be prepared.
Absolutely. So let's talk about it. Let's look back at the big win, Miami over Florida, 41-17, and really after middle of the first quarter or so, it really was not much of a ball game. It was kind of one-way traffic for the Miami Hurricanes. So let's just talk about it. Let's start with Cam Ward. Obviously, he's the biggest story. 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have the 1 interception that was kind of a weird play throwing into, I don't really know what he was throwing into, but give Florida, the Florida linebacker, a little credit for making a good play on the interception. 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception, 33 yards rushing, and was just unbothered. That's probably the main word that stuck out to me. Unbothered, nonchalant, cool, calm, and collected. How many cliches can we use for somebody who was just so cool? Even in a hot day in Gainesville. Well, just tell us, what did you make out of the first performance for Cam Ward in a Miami uniform?
Everything that you could have expected and hoped for out of this weekend from Cam Ward. Everything he was doing at Wazoo came and instantly flowed in. He has a better offensive line. He has a better running back core. He has better everything all around him, and that's why he was able to play the way that he played, with confidence, that aura, that nonchalantness. Everything that he is doing is what he wants to do, and that's the way that he played. Fantastic, over 400 yards total, just throwing the ball wherever he wanted to throw the ball. The Florida Gators had no answer for him outside of that 1 bad pass, but that was more on Cam than it was on the defense more than anything. He was just trying to make something up and do whatever he had to do. He plays that Superman. He puts on that Superman cape sometimes. Sometimes you don't really need to do that. At that point in time, he tried to put that Superman cape on and just try and do something crazy. It wasn't really something that he needed to do, but look, it didn't bother him towards the end of the game. That's one of the biggest things about him. He can throw an interception. It's not going to bother him at all. It's going to go straight to the next play and just continue from there. And he kept throwing those across the body passes later on down the game too, and it just didn't matter for whatever he wanted to do. So it's a big game for him, and I think he's finally – a lot of people chose him to win the Heisman. But I think a lot of people in the national media and a national attention mindset, they finally see why a lot of people had such high hopes for this Miami team and Cam Ward.
What is it about it? Is it just the fact that he played on the West Coast for my apprehension? Because you're talking about me. Because I thought, okay, he's going to be good. He's going to be a good little player. It's going to be a good fit. But on Saturday, it was eye-popping. It was, that might be the best quarterback in the country. And obviously I watched Georgia and Clemson, watched Carson Beck. I watched Alabama and Western Kentucky. I watched Jalen Milroe. I watched Texas and Colorado State, Quinn Ewers. Cam Ward was just so – okay, Florida might just be bad, and we'll get into that in just a second. But Cam Ward was just under such control. It was like his heart rate was riding on 65 the entire day. Even when he was under pressure, it was, I'm just going to take a half step over here and slide and take a half step over there and slide, and I won't keep my eyes up down the field and, find somebody in the back of the end zone on a rope. It was just so under control. It looked like – this phrase, men among boys. It looked like that to me. So was it just the fact that, Justice, I'm sitting here in the eastern part of the country right here in Alabama, that we're not paying enough attention to West Coast football? Is that the root of our surprise or my surprise?
It might be. There are a lot of great quarterbacks that come out of the former Pac-12 and what they were able to do. He was one of the best in the country last season, even though the stats, not the stats, but even though the wins didn't come for Washington State, they had to go against that Washington team. Michael Penix, they had to go against Bo Nixon, that Oregon team. Caleb Williams was still there. All those different talents that was in the Pac-12, his name wouldn't be on the radar compared to everybody else because all those players went in the top 12 of the NFL draft this season. He was right there with them in all the stats and statistical categories. That's why he's playing the way that he's playing. He was a very under recruited, going the JUCO route. He has that mindset that he just has to play who he is. He has to be who he is, and that's what he was able to do on Saturday. Just play that nonchalant way out there. He is a man amongst boys, and that's one of the main things that made Miami such the perfect fit for him.
All right, so we're talking about Miami's big 41-17 win with Justice Sandle right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Kane Central. I know the Miami Hurricanes on SI site has been buzzing going into the year and really now after such a huge win in a rivalry game. We just hit on Cam Ward just a little bit, but on the other side of the football, Justice, holding Florida to just 261 yards. And I know Graham Mertz kind of has mixed reviews as a quarterback, and he ended up getting knocked out of that game due to injury. And DJ Lagway finished it. Looked okay. Looked like a talented freshman. You saw talent, but you saw freshman mistakes out of Lagway as well. But what I want to focus on is not the Florida offense. It's the Miami defense. Holding Florida to so few yards, 261 total yards, only 122 yards passing. You know that is not going to work in today's day and age. But I want to get your thoughts on the defense with a special caveat to Rueben Bain, because I'm watching the game and I'm like, where's the man? Where's the man? Where's the defensive end? And it seems like, okay, yeah, he was dinged up before the game. He tried to give it a go. Why don't you talk about the defensive performance and kind of give us an injury update on Rueben Bain?
Okay, so first with Rueben Bain, he went down in the first drive of the game. It's just a soft tissue injury, nothing too serious. He'll be out for a couple of weeks. I'll say Mario said he'll be out definitely this week, maybe 2-3 weeks. Probably just let him sit before we get into ACC play pretty much. I think that's what the focal point is right now, is just to keep him healthy because he is the star player on the defense. But looking at the defense and the way that they performed against Florida, it's endless. The talent is endless. I tried to tell you at the beginning of the season, the depth on that defensive line is something incredible. Tyler Barron looked amazing in that game. Elijah Alston, Simeon Barrow Jr., Akeem Messador, even the linebackers, Kiku, Wesley, everybody around. The thing that shocked me the most was the play of the secondary. Everything that came into that game was the talk of, is the secondary going to perform with this way? Is the secondary going to perform that way? They looked fantastic, holding them almost under that 150-yard mark on passing, even with the rushing touchdown that Montreal Johnson had, that 71-yard rushing touchdown.
Around the bottom.
That was just a broken play. That's all that happened, just missed alignment, and he just got off that break. If that never happened, if that big play never happened, they probably wouldn't have scored over that 10-point mark that they had. They looked great in that first drive and everything like that, but outside of that, the defense was stout and impressive. I think one of the key things that they've noted in their press conference is that they've been watching more film recently than they have in the past couple of years. I think that's a Mario thing. It's also a thing from Mish Powell coming in from Washington after the national championship runner-up. He's bringing that national championship mindset into the locker room, bringing that, okay, we're going to watch more film. We're going to have a better culture. We're going to do everything that we need to do to be the best team, because once you study more, you're going to be able to understand more. So that's what they were able to do. Even with the freshman and OJ Frederick, he looked fantastic. Daryl Porter, Mish, he got the interception. Jaden Harris was the ACC defensive back of the week. 8 tackles. He had a sack, an interception. He could have had 2 interceptions at that if he didn't drop the first one that Graham Mertz threw across the middle of the field. Everything was fantastic on the defensive side of the ball.
All right, so everything's all good. Rueben Bain not majorly injured. When you look at the schedule, you see Florida A&M coming up, and you see Ball State on the horizon after that. So maybe a little bit of a place to get Rueben Bain back healthy before the ACC schedule ramps up.
Oh, also another note, Damari Brown is also injured too. He was working in the secondary. He got injured towards the end of the first half. Secondary, he had a couple pass deflections. He looked great too, but another soft tissue injury, nothing too serious from what Mario says. So going in from that and what Rueben Bain is doing, I think that the schedule plays in their favor. They had a big first game. So having that big first game against Florida helped them out a lot, and especially the way that they dominated on the defensive side of the ball, everything looked great. So Ruben taking a nice, I would say, break, but recovering on his injuries, especially Brown recovering on his injuries as well, they're going to add a lot of talent back in the next coming weeks, and the defense could look even better.
All right, so the fallout is pretty much endless for both programs. Right now, Miami getting a lot of hype. Oh, my goodness, best team in the ACC, best quarterback in the country, yada, 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 just blowing smoke up the Miami rear ends. But on the other end, you've got just pouring all kinds of turds on the Florida head, just pouring all kinds of just terrible stuff on Billy Napier. And look, we all knew Billy Napier was going to have a very difficult year. Their schedule was one of the hardest in the country, if not the hardest. But really, after one day, you're hearing everybody, well, we might as well get it over with. Might as well fire Billy Napier. So that brings me to the question, was it Miami being that good, Justice? Look, we've gone over the build-up, the summer build-up, all throughout the summer. Was Miami really just that good, or was Florida that bad?
I think it's a bit of both. So on the Miami side, they left some points out on the field. They did a couple of miscommunications on the offense that allowed them to go on 3 and outs a couple of occasions. But in reality, Miami could have scored 60. They really could have. For Florida, I think it's a quarterback issue. Graham Mertz did not look good. He did get taken out of the game, but once you saw DJ Lagway get into the game, they started to produce a little bit more. Now, he is a freshman, but he's going to make those simple mistakes and things like that. But the offense looked a bit better. Graham Mertz is so limited, and what that offense can do is so limited with him under center. I think that was the biggest issue. He's only going to throw checkdowns. He's only going to throw short passes, and anything down the field he's not really going to do. So that was one of the key things. For Billy, him attacking the fans at the end of the press conference, I don't think that's the best thing for him to do. Knowing that he's already on the hot seat, that's going to be the quickest thing to get you out of a job, especially with how faithful that fan base is in Gainesville. I think that's one of those things, but it's just the first game, and they do have the hardest schedule in the country pretty much. So I think that if he can bounce back and show that with under DJ Lagway and that they can just somewhat produce, I think that it will start to quiet down. It was the biggest rivalry game that they've had this weekend. And I think losing that game only blows up more smoke because you want to be the best team in Florida, especially with all the recruits there. If you saw a couple of those clips with that defensive player sitting in the bush.
What do you make of that?
Look, it's great for Miami because all the recruits are right there, and recruits looking at that like, oh, I don't want to go here. Let's go to Miami. And especially at the end of the game where different players were going up and then their recruiter was trying to shoo them away and everything. It's a big thing in Florida dealing with their recruiting. That game is so important with the recruits. That's probably why another reason Billy was so agitated at that press conference, because all the recruits that they were there, one of the recruits that will be visiting Miami this weekend, and DJ Pickett, who committed to LSU, he was sitting right there and watching that the whole time. I believe either his brother or his younger cousin is already crystal ball to go there in the 2026 class. So maybe that could be an indication of where he might do if it's a little bit of flipness, just something.
So I know you already saw Florida. They filed a complaint. They filed a recruiting violation to complaint on Miami for that. What? That's a bunch of hooey. You lost the game. The players are talking trash walking off the field. This is not a recruiting violation.
Look, it's not a recruiting violation. Look, they're just mad that they lost, and the recruits are watching what a better program looks like right now. That's all it is. All those 5 stars that were there, 5-star, 4-star, 3 stars that were there, they're like, oh, I think South Beach might be the better program for me in the future instead of what this dumpster fire that's going on right now in Miami is. So it could be a little bit of both.
Shouldn't you just sit the recruit somewhere else? Or win the game. That's the easiest. That's the easiest answer. But if you're worried about the recruits having the opposing team come and talk to them, sit them somewhere else in the stadium.
Look, they could have had them somewhere else on the sideline, somewhere maybe like closer towards the middle, actually be a part of the fans so they can get the full experience of being with the Gators in the swamp and everything. I don't know. Look, all in good faith for Miami. That's all that matters. So
Cam Ward after the game saying it wasn't that loud. It was louder at USC in the half-full Coliseum. It was louder in Oregon, which Autzen Stadium is super, super loud. Was Cam Ward just poking the bear, poking the rivalry, or do you think he really thought it wasn't that loud in this way? It seemed loud through the TV copy, what I watched.
I think it was a bit of both. Now, playing against Oregon and playing against USC and all those crowds, I think people don't really understand because since now the Eastern Conference has turned to such a powerhouse with football compared to how the West used to be, that it's a stark difference between the two. But I think the thing is that they took them out so early that they didn't have a reason to be loud. And that was probably one of the main things. Probably at the beginning of the game, it was like, all right, cool. It's a bit loud. You don't really have that momentum going up for it to be really loud. A key third down stop, a key fourth down stop with the crowd just really going. But if you're taking them out instantly, there's no reason for them to be loud. Fans are leaving. Everybody's leaving it. And Miami's fans were louder than what the Florida fans were. And that was throughout the whole game. It wasn't just even once they started leaving. So I think that was the key thing.
It's just the quality of player jumped off the screen to me. Obviously, not right off the bat, but throughout the entire course of the 4 quarters, you could see that, okay, these Miami players are playing with a sense of aggression and a sense of purpose and a sense of, okay, we know what we're doing, a sense of discipline. With Billy, it's been about the details, a lack thereof on the details. And so, this is not a Florida show. We leave them in the dust. But it just was pretty obvious to me over the course of 4 quarters that, this Miami roster is better top to bottom than the Florida roster.
Absolutely, it is everything from top to bottom. Now, I'm not saying that that Florida doesn't have the talent that they have. They have some spectacular talent, but in the key places where you need to have that talent, offensive line, quarterback, defensive line, Miami was just better at all fronts. And Miami didn't even really get a chance to run the ball like they really wanted to. Now, Damian Martinez was running over people, so that's also a great thing to watch out for. Mark Fletcher Jr. had 2 touchdowns on the goal line. He was doing great. One of the standouts was Jordan Lyle. He got a lot of playing time. He had some very key blocks in the game, too, and I think that's one of the reasons why he is playing because of that extra physicality that he does bring. But top to bottom, they just have a better roster all around, and that's why they're one of the best teams in the country.
All right, after the game, we see Mario Cristobal kind of turn to the crowd, and it wasn't a lot of taunting. It was very controlled, but he did kind of let one big old Gator chomp at his crowd. So, look, understandable, rivalry game. Not talking bad about Mario at all. I just don't want to oversell that he was taunting. He wasn't taunting. I think he was just one little enjoyment of, we got one. So, with that note, what is this game and this rivalry game? All the buildup. Obviously, the next couple games are a little bit easier on the opponents, but building up to week number 1, rivalry game against Florida. You've got a great quarterback. You've done well in the transfer portal. All the pressure's on you to come out and win 41-17. It seemed like a little bit of a small picture of, a little relief. Got one. We got a good team. What did you take away from what this win meant to Mario Cristobal?
I think it's that finally we've arrived. We're here. After all the previous 2 seasons, everything that's gone down, finally we're here. We're the best team in Florida right now. I would, in general, Florida State, good luck to them. And Florida, good luck to them. Miami's the best team in Florida right now. I think it was that sense of relief. We're finally here. This is our moment. This is our chance. In the new system, in the new era of everything, this is finally our chance to return Miami back to the powerhouse it once was. This was also what he talked about in his press conference, is that he didn't get a chance when he was playing for Miami. He didn't get a chance to play in this game. That was one of the reasons that he did come to Miami. So having that rivalry, knowing how big this rivalry is, and him finally getting that chance to be a part of it and experience it and getting the win and how dominant the win was, that was the biggest thing for him. It was just a sigh of relief. I got to finally do everything that I've always wanted to do, but also just a second of, all right, cool, we did this, but now there's something bigger that we can attain right here. So we got to focus on that.
All right, we're sitting here on Friday with Justice Sandle on the Joe Gaither Show on Canes Central. You follow him at Miami Hurricanes on SI. All right, you've experienced the whole week now. We're getting set for Florida A&M. What has been the messaging to kind of, compartmentalize that 1-0 mindset and say, okay, you said it right off the bat of the show, Justice. You dropped it, 0-0 mindset. What has been the messaging to kind of reinforce the 0-0 mindset?
Continuality and consistency. That's been the main message so far. Showing up to practice on time, showing up to practice on early. That's one of the main things that they've been doing. You can have a big win like that and just relax, but they know that there's a bigger thing out there for them. They have national championship aspirations, especially the way that they did what they did to Florida. Coming in early, having that consistency, studying film, everything that they have in mind, that is exactly what they're doing. They're being consistent. They're being the best possible player that they can be. They're doing those high quality talent things that you want out of a player. When Nick Saban was running Alabama, all the little things, all the little details that he wanted out of his program, everybody was doing. That's what Mario Cristobal is doing right now for his program. And I think that's one of the main things going forward that they have to continue to do with studying film, showing up on time, eating right, doing all the little things properly and going forward.
All right, so you got Florida A&M this weekend. This is going to be a game that I normally would not even have on my radar. I'd say, why would I pay attention to this game, Joe Gaither? So, Justice, tell me, what's the importance? What can we learn? What can I learn about the Miami Hurricanes this weekend against Florida A&M?
You can learn about the young talent that will eventually be playing. That's the main thing. I think that's the biggest thing. Now, the ones will be playing, of course. They will start the game off. But if everything goes to plan, I think the last time that Miami played Florida A&M, it was 73-0. So, and that was with not even a good roster compared to, because this was 2019. It was a decent roster under Manny Diaz, but this roster right here, they could genuinely put 100 up on them if they tried to. If they just threw the ball down the field every single time, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're just going to run the ball the whole time, not really get anybody hurt. But I think you'll get a chance to see some of the younger talent. I think that's the biggest thing. Jordan Lyles will probably get a good number of snaps. Justin Scott, the 5-star that on the defensive line, you might get to see some of him. That secondary, continuing to get those reps and that build up and just those practice reps just to be better than what they need to be, like with O.J. Frederick and some other players. I think that's the key thing. Just the young talent, pretty much. I think the receivers, I genuinely believe you'll see some young receivers. The amount of talent, JoJo Trader, Nikar, so much talent in that receiver room that hasn't been seen yet because of what the importance of that first game was. I think that the future of Miami, that's the most important thing. The future of Miami is the biggest thing going forward in that FAMU game.
All right, so let's wrap it up by talking about something that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I hate, Justice, about college football?
What do you hate?
Preseason polls. I hate them. They're the most ridiculous exercise that you can think of. Let's rate a team that we haven't even seen yet. We don't know how they're going to gel. They've traded these parts out, transfer portal this, graduation that, NFL this, recruiting that, new coaches, coaching carousel. You don't know any of these teams. We've now seen, a week and week 0 for a couple of these teams. What the hell? Miami has moved from number 19 to number 12. And look, I'm not a Miami fan. Neither of us are. We're doing this to cover the team. It's going to be a great year to cover the team. But goodness gracious, we can be objective. Was Miami was that the best win of the weekend, or was it the best win of the 2 weekends? It might be. You got Texas A&M going or losing to Notre Dame at home. So Notre Dame, that's a big win. You got Georgia Tech beating Florida State. That's a big win. North Carolina winning on the road at Minnesota. Georgia beating Clemson. Those are big wins. But outside of that, Miami beating Florida in Florida, that's a top 5 win of the season. They should be ranked in the top 5, at least in the top 10. But come on, look through this AP poll top 10. Who the heck did Oregon beat this weekend? They won by 10, didn't they? Who the heck? Oh, Missouri. I love you, Missouri, but you beat Murray State. Who cares? Ole Miss, you beat Furman. Who cares? Alabama, you beat Western Kentucky. Like, some of these teams that are ranked above Miami, they might be more talented and they might end up higher at the end of the year. But why can we not just compartmentalize this and say we have seen 1 week of football? And
I think, look, do I believe they should be a top 10 team, especially with the way that they perform? Absolutely. I can give you Notre Dame. I can give you Georgia. I understand Alabama. I understand Ohio State. I understand that. Everybody else, Ole Miss played Furman. They were stacking cups just to stack cups in their stands. Okay, congratulations. Oregon did not look good at all. Dylan Gabriel had a bunch of passes. That's great. He only had 2 touchdowns with over 400 yards. Okay. Everybody else, 50-50. Realistically, that was a top 5 win this weekend. USC against LSU, great game. That was a great game right there. I think that was a big win right there, especially for Lincoln Riley and all the drama going around.
But it wasn't on the road. It wasn't at in LSU, like Miami did. Miami went into Florida.
That's true. That's true. It was in the swamp. That's true. It wasn't in the Death Valley. So it was a top. It might be the best win this weekend. It really could be because they just came in and they proved a point. That's what Miami did. They came in, proved a point. We have a quarterback now. If you saw, I don't know if you saw Tyler Van Dyke and what he did with Wisconsin. He was fumbling and bumbling everywhere. And it is a blessing. What Mario Cristobal said, it's a blessing to have Cam Ward. You saw that this weekend, that it is a blessing to have Cam Ward. So I think it was one of the best wins of this, best wins of the week, if not the best. And I think continuing forward, it'll only get better.
He is Justice Sandle. You follow him at Justice_News5. You follow all of his great work at Miami Hurricanes on SI. They're going to be in the press box this weekend as Miami is beating down the Florida A&M Rattlers. Aren't they Rattlesnakes? Rattlers? Yep. I believe that's what they are. So that game will be all over Miami Hurricanes on SI. And we're going to catch up with Justice next week to find out about that and set us up for another snoozer. Ball State. We got to get into this ACC schedule. Thank the Lord for a premier week number 1 game. Justice, enjoy the weekend, man.
Absolutely. You too.
Thanks so much for your time. That's Justice Sandle joining us. Make sure, again, follow him at Justice_News5, doing all kinds of great work for Miami Hurricanes on SI. Miami and Florida A&M will be on Saturday at 5 p.m. right here Central Time, 6 o'clock if you're checking us out on the East Coast. Make sure you watch us, the Joe Gaither Show on Kane Central on the Miami Hurricanes on SI site, and all kinds of coverage for that Florida A&M game will be on Miami Hurricanes on SI. That's going to do it for our show this week. We'll be back to recap week number 2 right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Kane Central, Miami Hurricanes on SI.